All right, so welcome back to all those listening in on my Liberty University series, and we're going to talk about part two of, how I got the job at Liberty University Online in the academic advising department. So I left off in part one about the exam I was stressed out about because at this point I was finally in an apartment on a lease, and it's just like, yeah, if I bomb this thing, I ain't got a job, so this sucks. And I was really hoping that the exam would have happened while I was still making the commute, driving the hour to and then hour from work. And it really kind of sucks in hindsight because, there was a call center like 30 minutes from the house. Yeah, that really sucked, now I think about it. But yeah, in any case, got to exam day. And I'm glad I'm done with school because I love looking at those memes now, like on student memes and stuff like that, or watching videos where they got, or even GIFs, where it's like, when you sit down for an exam and it's like you kind of scan, it's like, okay, I don't know the first question, so I'll go through the rest of the pages, and then you realize you don't know anything, and then you had that meltdown. That was me. I was just like, you know what? I'm going to go up in here. Whatever happens, happens. That was my attitude. I didn't care. It was a 3-part exam. You were allowed to take breaks, like, okay, if you finish up 1 part or 2 parts and you want to get up, go to lunch, take a break. I remember I didn't do lunch that day. I didn't do lunch that day. I sat, I think I might have finished it before lunch. I sat down and was like, you know what, whatever happens, happens, like YOLO. Was YOLO a thing back in 2014? I forgot what year, but that was my attitude. I really didn't give a damn. I was like, let me take this test. I was mad at everything. Like, my parents, they're the ones that pushed me out of the house. They're the ones that made me get an apartment. They're the ones that made me get this job. I don't care anymore. I'm just going to take this test. It's like, if I bomb it, I'm not bombing it on purpose. I'm going to answer everything I know. But I knew when I got to the phone numbers and all, like, I don't remember this crap. All I can think about is 8675309. Obviously, that was not the phone number to financial aid. But in any case, and I was mad at the job too. It was like, I put it on the job application. I'm not a phone person. So why the heck did they let me go this far? So I remember making it through the test. I think I was the first one to finish. Yeah, I was the first one to finish. I know a few people got up to go on the break, stretch their legs, get some water, use the restroom, do lunch. I was like, I want to just take this. Whatever happens, happens. Jesus, just take the mouse, click, type. I don't care. So here's the part where I got upset. And I didn't like go off or anything. But basically, finished the exam. Went to lunch. Got back from lunch, and I remember, can I say people's name? Yeah, Whitney. She was the person who was the leader of nesting. Like, her team was nesting. Basically, the advisors fresh out of training would be on main queue. Like, main queue was, just to give you an insight, queues were like, specific. We have a business queue dealing with business students, divinity or religion queue dealing with religion students, nursing, education, and the list goes on. Main queue is pretty much you took in calls from everything. Obviously to prepare you. I mean, because if you can handle calls from any department, then when you get sent over to a specific queue, then things are a little bit more organized and easier to handle. Okay? Now, here's the part where I was getting upset. I finished my exam and they told me, oh my gosh, it's like, you were the first one to finish. Wow. And I'm like, yeah, I went in there, I did what I did. And I think the day before the exam, because I was known to crack jokes in class, but I wasn't a class clown, but I was very attentive. I'll answer questions. I would do decently on the exam. So, I would crack a joke every now and then. It's like, man, I want to come up like a freestyle or something to memorize these answers. I actually did too. And I think I spit a few verses in the class before the exam. The day before the exam, they were laughing, and then she's like, oh, that song and freestyle might have worked. I'm like, we'll have to see. The reason I was getting upset is because I felt like I was just being fed like a rotten apple. Here's what I mean by that. Like a piece of cake with spoiled frosting. They took me from the training class because, again, I was the first one to finish. I think everybody else in the class still working. So they asked me to come with them. You know, they're like, hey, great job finishing the exam first. They walked me out to the floor. They showed me my cubicle, my phone. And I'm thinking to myself, why are you doing this? I don't even know. At this time, I thought I bombed. I'm like, I knew, you know when you take a test in your heart and you know you bombed? That was me. I'm like, all they're doing is gassing me up, but I'm not going to open the cap of the car. Like, you're not going to gas me up. And it's like, I might be on the phone for like a day and a half. And then I get the news I bombed and I get fired. I didn't want that. I was thinking to myself, why are you doing this to me? Why are you taking me out here? Why are you showing me my cubicle, my headset and everything, the computer? And I think 3 days later, I forgot the exact time frame, but it wasn't long after. Sorry, my chair's creaking. It wasn't long after that. One of the training coaches came out there, was like, hey, the results are up if you want to see them. I refused to. I was like, I did not want to see the results, because in my heart, I'm like, I did not want to see the results. Like, this was like at a couple hours into the shift. It's like, I didn't want to see the results and then spend the entire day depressed, because I felt like, okay, they're probably going to fire me at the end of the week or the end of the day. I don't want to be sitting here stressed out about that. I think I did not pass. I think I did not pass. Yeah, I think I eventually looked at the score and I did not pass. And I think, like, during my first one-on-one with Whitney, I think I asked her, it's like, well, I know I bombed the test, so why did you all let me stay on? And she told me, it's like, look, it's because you did so well in the class. Like, the test itself wasn't really meant to, like, gauge your skills, because you did well on the weekly exams. You were attentive in class. They even joked about, you know, how Scott, he would like notice your head nodding back, but we know for a fact that you had like an hour drive. You were never late. Some days it was like pouring down rain and it was like dangerous, but you still got on that highway. So basically my persistence, despite the odds, is what let them keep me on the job. It's like, you know what he did on the exam wasn't that great, but what he did in class was great. So let's see how this guy does when he gets on the phone, because we had mock phone calls in the class and I did well with that. And I think, like, during my first couple of months, because I want to fast forward to November, because this was a transitional period for me, right after Thanksgiving. I'll never forget, like, I think it was right after I got back from Thanksgiving or right before Thanksgiving break. That's when Whitney was like, okay, we're going to move you on to the main queue. I'm like, wait, what? I mean, we're going to move you on to a new queue. I'm like, wait, what? I wasn't ready. I've always been like that hesitant, you know, I don't want to jump into the deep end of the pool or jump out of the nest kind of person, because people usually see the potential in me when I don't, like, you know, because it all goes back to comfort zones, because I was doing well with the main queue. One thing about Liberty, I never got a supervisor call, and I'm saying that with not with pride, but just stating a fact. Like, I never had a supervisor call, because I knew how stressful those were sometimes, because I mean, some people, like, you just have no choice, but I always made a point, like, I handled it. Like, I took care of business and I handled it. That's not to say people with supervisor calls didn't handle the job. It's just like, maybe it's the fact I was a communications major. Maybe it's the fact I'm very persuasive in my language, but I was able to avoid the dreaded supervisor call. And that was a good thing. I mean, that's one thing I can truly say about my time there. It really, I mean, that job really, and I might do a video talking about the positives of the job and the negatives of the job. But overall, you know, it was definitely a learning experience. And when she told me that, I was kind of stunned, because, you know, like, I remember me and another guy, we were competing for like the most financial check-ins, the most credit hours, the most registrations, what have you, the highest grade, because, you know, they were great phone calls. Not all of them, but they would select a few. And the thing that really made me mad, though, as time went on, they were like, you know, like the quality assurance and whatnot, they were great calls that were shorter than the long ones, because sometimes I remember one of my first month, there were callers calling in. Keep in mind, I love the religion calls, because obviously I went to graduate school for religion, so I had experience. I remember one student in their associate's degree, I literally walked them through the process of what it would be like to transition to the bachelor's level, then graduate level, because you're hungry for more, because those classes are so engaging. And she was like, they should give you a raise. I'm like, well, I've only been here a month, so I don't think I can ask for that. But those are, I mean, regardless of the reason for the call, when you had a good time with the student, even the calls that didn't start off good, but they eventually became good, those are my favorite calls. But Yeah, I think right after. Yeah, I think after things. I think it was right after Thanksgiving. You know, yeah, right before Thanksgiving break. That's when she told me, when you get back, we're moving you. I'm like, ah. But then I was like, I'm not ready. It's like, look, I mean, I felt like I had to prove myself, because I'll never forget, like, the beginning of November. That was like my 3rd month on the job. I remember that, because we had those tiers like on the TV screens around the call center. It was like, you know, what person had like the most registrations, credit hours, FCIs. I remember for that 1 week, there was one specific week, I was the #1 in all 3 categories. I know, like, the our associate director or whatnot, or the director, like, emailed me. It's like, great job crushing the numbers. And I remember Whitney was like, oh, okay, you're doing great. You got props from the, you know, person at the top. That's awesome. And that was my 3rd month on the job. And that was a good and bad thing, because when you're at the top of the charts that early, it's kind of like you hit your Thriller, your Purple Rain. It's like, how are you going to outdo that? And I'm always been that kind of person. Whitney, she would always drive me. It's like, yeah, I know you're going to do great on like a format team, because you're a person that really moves forward. You're a person that really kills. It's like, basically, when you're given a challenge, you just rise to the occasion because you're driven. And I'm like, that's true. But yeah. So after that, I remember that meeting, and I told her, it's like, yeah, I try to hit high numbers, because I just want to prove myself, because I didn't do well on the test. And I think that's when she sat down and told me, we didn't really care about the test. We wanted to see how well you would do. And it's like, this test was ridiculous. It's like, why would we gauge your performance based off memorizing phone numbers and stuff, because we give you those sheets? So we'll definitely work on taking those off for the next round of employees. So that was a good moment, but at the same time bad, because it's like 3rd month on the job and you already hit the top of the charts, and it's kind of like, where do you go from there? And 3 months turned into 3 years, so whatever. But in any case, yeah, I got back, went on Business Q. Awesome people I met along the way. It was just a great time. And as time went on, you know, I think I hit another record, most financial check-ins in a month ever. I think like 113, 117. And once again, it's like, okay, I hit a high number, but nothing really changed. I didn't notice any offers for positions. Basically, let me just put it this way. I never stopped being an advisor. I never moved out of the cubicle. And that will probably be in a separate video. Let me just say, I never asked for a promotion. I never asked for that. I remember in one end of month evaluation on my annual review, like, I was still killing numbers, looking at the chart, top of the charts, like one of the most efficient advisors, numbers wise, getting people to register and whatnot, basically bringing in a crap ton of money. But I really wasn't getting any raises or anything reflecting that. So that's when my disgruntlement started. But I will say this, there were a lot of things I didn't like about the job, but that never showed in my work performance. I came in every day, killed it, did best I could. And yeah, that was it. But it was like I was getting peanuts compared to the truffles I was bringing Liberty, if you know what I mean. So that's when I really started feeling, you know, the after effect. I think this was after my 1 year. Yeah, I'll never forget that. But yeah, so that was pretty much my first year in a nutshell, from being on the nesting squad for a couple of months, then transitioning to my first Q. And changes occurred as time went on, from, you know, the basic format of being graded on phone calls from behind the scenes. Then we eventually transitioned to, you know, people coming up and sitting with you, hooking up their stuff and grading phone calls. Not a big fan of that. That will be its own separate video, definitely. But yeah, probably like in my negative videos. But yeah, so let me just say this much. I met a lot of people along the way, whether they came into the job and left, got fired, moved on to another position, whatever the case may be. Definitely a lot of great people. A lot of them I still keep in contact with even today, because they're just great people in general. I never had a beef with anyone. No, I don't. Yeah, I never had a beef. Like, once again, it's like at the end of the day, there were a lot of things I didn't like about the job, but as time went on, that's when you just, sometimes it's like, you know, when you have a problem with the person versus what they're doing to you, in regards to, like, you know, if they graded a call harshly, if they got on you because your numbers were low, which never really happened. I mean, the only thing with my attitude was like, you know, to show up every day, do my job. Like I would always show up if I could, like 30 minutes early. There were people who were like, yo man, what you show up so early for? For me, and again, this goes back to being an introvert and whatnot, I need that me time, like to come in, get my stuff set up, you know, maybe listen to some music, watch some YouTube videos, get in the zone, and you know, just get ready for the day. And that's how I did it. And then like I wanted to be that employee where it, you know, if my numbers were a little low, it would be like, yo, Jeremy. It wouldn't be like, yo, man, you're slacking. It's like, hey, is something wrong? Because I remember one time one of my first bosses was like, yo, man, is something wrong? When the numbers were kind of low. And it's like, you know, I think Dave was my AD at the time. And, you know, I think our shifts were kind of like aligned up where he would get off at a certain time, a few hours before I did, and he would kind of come over and, you know, we just talk for a little bit. It's like, hey man, you're doing great. And it's like, yeah, as you know, like during my last 30 minutes, you know, I'll just sit back, kind of look at what I'm doing. You know, what can I do to improve and stuff like that. And that was really cool. We had those talks. I had a lot of great bosses over the, what was it? Caleb, Dave, Fred, Callie, Alicia, Callie. Yeah, Whitney, and I mean everybody had their own style, but at the end of the day, you know, it was all love. Definitely great people, and that was my biggest thing. And maybe that's where I'll cut the video off, because maybe I should just transition to the positives and negatives, because time passed by and things just from leadership changes to transitioning from River Ridge Mall to the Nationwide building on was it Grays Mills Road? I forgot the name of the road. It's been a while. Nationwide Drive. Was Nationwide Drive. And then just things got crazy. I mean, change. But yeah, yeah, so that was part 2 of how I got my job at Liberty. So hang tight for part 3. And that's when I maybe divide things up into the positives and negatives. That would be pretty cool. So thanks so much for tuning in. Again, guys, just let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Once again, all about reminiscing, good times, bad times, fun stuff, and I'll talk to you all soon.